on gay marriage, Amendment 1.
And I'm all for one man and one woman.
I think that it's absolutely wrong to vote to take a civil right away from our fellow citizens.
And every minority group make the decisions for the majority. Where's this country going to be?
I don't feel threatened by gay marriage. It doesn't affect me.
If we change the definition of traditional marriage, we will have sodomy, bigamy.
If people want to get married, as long as they pay their taxes, I don't see what the problem is.
The fact of it is they cannot reproduce in male with male and female with female. And that within itself shows us an error in this.
I feel like these people should have the same rights that everyone else has.
I'm not ashamed to defend the traditional family values.
My view has always been, if you're against gay marriage, don't marry a gay person.
Let the people vote and see what they say.
Said he was on his way.
John and Desiree Lyon have been married 22 years.
Tell me how you feel about your wife.
I feel a lot of love for my wife. She's my best friend, and she makes me feel giddy inside like a little kid a lot of times.
I love John because he taught me how to love first, and I adore him. I respect him, and I honor him.
No, it wouldn't be good. No.
Chris O'Sullivan and Karen Farrington have been together 12 years.
I love her dearly. We've got a bond that is very strong.
Tell me how you feel about Karen.
How much time do I have? Karen is my partner in life.
John and Desiree met in college.
She was smart and intelligent, and I think the other thing that attracted me to her is that I could tell that she had family values.
He looked very level-headed, and I just thought, wow. And he was cute.
Chris and Karen met through mutual friends.
What was the attraction?
Look at her. I think the attraction was certainly a small part would be physical, but mainly it was a kismet, that clicking.
She's fun. She's intelligent. Great sense of humor.
John and Desiree got married at a church in Oxford in 1990.
I was totally relaxed. I knew that this was right.
I was nervous, I think, as most young women are.
Chris and Karen had a commitment ceremony at St. Mark's Chapel in Raleigh in 2001.
It was an amazing time to share with family and friends and before God, and with each other. It was wonderful,
Now we thank you for the food that you've blessed us with. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. John and Desiree have 4 children. 21-year-old John, 19-year-old Kristen, 15-year-old Justine, and 11-year-old Samuel.
All of them are very lovable children and very obedient. They honor their mother and father.
Yeah. Chris and Karen have 2 children, 9-year-old Colin and 8-year-old Jordan.
They're the lights of our lives.
They each gave birth.
It was not by accident.
We wanted children. We wanted a family of our own. And, but we did consider how people would treat our children.
Bon appetit.
Chris and Karen say their community and their school have been accepting of their family. The Lyons are very involved in their children's lives.
Having John and Kristen home from school makes me happy.
Today, our day.
Chris and Karen are very involved in their children's lives, too.
We went to Peru.
Oh, neat.
With the presentation from Miss Washington's class.
There you go, there you go, there you go.
The Lyons attend their daughter's basketball games.
Let's go, Western! All right, Mavericks.
Chris and Karen attend their son's basketball games.
Nice job, nice solo!
Both families live comfortable lives in the suburbs. Both couples love and are committed to each other. Both couples love their children and are involved in their lives. But Chris and Karen cannot marry under current North Carolina law. And now voters will decide whether that prohibition should be written into our state's constitution. Last September, a new Republican-controlled legislature passed the Defense of Marriage Act to keep gay couples from marrying in our state. Because it's a change to our Constitution, it has to be approved by voters.
My thoughts is that marriage is between one man and one woman, and therefore I support it because I believe that our Creator, who defined marriage and established marriage, this institution of marriage, that's how he established it. And so I think that this amendment is the right amendment for our state.
It's sad. It's sad for our state. And it's sad for my children. I don't like the idea of my children being groomed to discriminate. And what it essentially does is it writes this discrimination into the Constitution of our state. I think it's backwards.
The fact that I'm born African American, I had no choice in that. But I feel that choosing to, have a same-sex marriage is a choice. It is a behavior. Racial discrimination is wrong, but to discriminate because of behavior is something that we must do.
I'm sorry that they feel that way. I appreciate that that's their opinion, and they're certainly allowed to have that opinion, but I see it differently. I live it, and that it's unfortunate that they can't broaden their view to see that people are being discriminated against.
I think that's all we're really asking is why would we be treated differently?
Next, the politics and religion behind the amendment.
All that the amendment will do will be to exclude some and antagonize all.
I don't see this amendment as being discriminatory against any particular group of people.
That day of bringing glory and honor to Jesus.
Mark Harris is the senior pastor at the First Baptist Church of Charlotte. He is also president of the Baptist State Convention of North Carolina. The convention represents more than 4,000 Baptist churches in North Carolina. It's a driving force behind support of Amendment 1.
This amendment basically is saying to individuals that we are defining marriage as between one man and one woman. Obviously, our perspective would be that marriage is of God. God himself gave the first bride away. God himself performed that very first wedding ceremony. God himself in the Garden of Eden. You can cite a number of scriptures today that would point to that fact that the homosexual relationship itself is outside of God's will.
God is only ever in the restoration business.
Sam Wells is Dean of Duke Chapel and Professor of Christian Ethics at Duke Divinity School. Duke University opposes Amendment 1, and so does Wells.
This isn't an issue about Christians defending the gospel or campaigning against sin. This is about mercy. This is about grace. This is about decency. This is about humanity. You ask, treat people like human beings and have some compassion. That's what it's about. The law is such a blunt instrument for dealing with things like this.
Wonder if you've got a burden today.
Even though homosexuals are a small minority of the population, Harris says the law is needed to keep their marriages from threatening traditional marriage.
Suddenly you find the whole culture flipped upside down, and suddenly that of traditional marriage that we have held to becomes very, very much at risk, even by what, as you termed, a small minority.
I don't think the kind of relationship I have with my wife and that other married people have is in any way damaged by the presence of loving gay relationships.
Ever since the founding of this country, and ever since the founding of our state constitution, marriage has been a part of this culture, and it has always been defined as between a man and a woman. This amendment simply restates that and gives strength to that and gives emphasis to that.
This is a nation founded on freedom and on separation between church and state. I'm not going to condemn fellow Christians for reading the Bible in ways that led them to different conclusions from me. But the idea that one group of Christians get to make the laws, I can't run with that.
In Genesis, the Lord said, "It is not good for man to be alone."
Many legislators cited Scripture in their arguments for the amendment.
Religion played a tremendous part in the founding of this country. Yes, we have separation of church and state, but church was still the basis that the country was founded on.
The state has, since the founding of the country, has been involved in the regulation of the institution of marriage.
State law prevents someone from marrying a minor, a close relative, or having more than one spouse. In 2010, Republicans ran on themes of less government regulation, more individual liberty, and promised to focus on job creation, but still found time to debate and vote on a constitutional amendment to keep same-sex couples from marrying.
I felt very strongly that this was something that was long overdue.
A nod to veteran GOP legislators who had been pushing the issue for years.
This issue has been around a long time, but because Republicans have always been the minority party, it's just never gotten out of committee.
While the legislature has already passed a state law banning same-sex marriage, supporters say the constitutional amendment is needed to keep the legislature or the courts from overturning it.
Once it's passed, the only law that is paramount to that is the federal Constitution.
Meaning that only a Supreme Court ruling establishing marriage as a civil right under the U.S. Constitution could overturn state amendments banning same-sex marriage.
I really want people to understand that it's the same as the civil rights issue back in the 1960s. This is all about someone is different, and so therefore you will be treated different.
Representative Marcus Brandon is the only openly gay member of the General Assembly.
I don't care what you think about me. I care that what you think about me goes into the Constitution.
How is Amendment 1 discriminatory?
On a basic level, it says that you may have a right and I do not, and that's discriminatory in itself.
Representative Brandon says the rights of a minority group should not be up for a popular vote.
We had a law on the book back 30 years ago that says African American and white people could not marry. We all realize how silly that is now, but thank God it wasn't in the Constitution.
First order of business today is
but amendment supporters decry such comparisons.
Somehow this is akin to the crazy racial amendments that were put forward in the 50s. Let's get real.
Do you feel that this amendment is discriminatory?
No.
Not at all?
Not at all. There's a presumption in that there is some right that's being denied. I'm not sure what right is being denied.
So I have a question.
Amendment opponents say in addition to denying gay couples the right to marry, it would also deny them many of the same benefits that other married couples enjoy, such as being covered by a spouse's health insurance, hospital visitation rights, and tax breaks.
This is not an amendment that seeks to preserve particular rights for all citizens. Instead, it's an amendment that seeks to preclude a certain group of citizens from getting particular rights.
Eichner points to the language of the amendment that says marriage between one man and one woman is the only domestic legal union that shall be valid or recognized in this state.
It would prohibit civil unions. It would prohibit the state from being able to put in place smaller packages of rights and benefits for same-sex couples.
While businesses would retain the right to provide domestic partner benefits to their employees, Eichner says public entities would not.
Those are the certain consequences. And then there are consequences that would depend on how broadly courts interpreted this vague and untested language.
Cities that provide domestic partner benefits, including Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, and Greensboro, have passed resolutions against the amendment.
I think it discriminates against the gay community to a degree.
Is that okay with you?
No.
But Representative Crawford, a primary sponsor of Amendment 1, says supporting traditional family values is more important, and so is letting North Carolinians vote on the issue.
It's a heated issue.
Next, the public debate over the amendment.
I support it. I think anything you can do to try to curb the behavior is a good thing.
We've got an amazing inventory of over 13 million pieces.
Bob Page is the CEO of Replacements Limited, a retailer of china, crystal, and collectibles in Greensboro. He is also a strong opponent of Amendment 1.
For me, it really is very personal. My partner, Dale, he and I have been together for, will be 23 years next month.
12 years ago, they adopted twin sons from Vietnam.
Do you wish you were married?
I would like to be married. I would like to see my children have two legal parents.
Page's sons have seen news coverage about Amendment 1.
It makes them feel like our family is less valid than some others. Of course, there are those in my own family who feel that way too, that my family is not valid.
Page is one of 75 North Carolina CEOs who signed a letter to legislative leaders opposing Amendment 1. He thinks it will hurt companies trying to lure talent from other parts of the country.
Some would not see this as being a great environment for hiring employees.
Electronic billboards on I-40 near Replacements display the company's opposition to the amendment.
Some people would say you're going out on a limb. You could lose business by doing this.
Sometimes there are things that are just more important than money.
We tried to find a CEO who supports Amendment 1 to interview. We worked with the two lead organizations campaigning for it, the North Carolina Family Policy Council and the North Carolina Values Coalition. They could not find a pro-amendment CEO willing to be interviewed for this documentary. But the Values Coalition, which is leading a campaign called Vote for Marriage NC, says it has plenty of support in the business community and the public at large.
Most people in this state agree that marriage is between one man and one woman, and the polling verifies that.
A WRAL Survey USA poll did show 58% supporting the amendment, but 34% admitted they didn't exactly know what the amendment does.
We know that when voters hear about what this amendment actually does and who it actually harms, we know that they're more likely to oppose it.
We can reject hate and division and mean attempts to turn us against each other.
The Coalition to Protect All NC Families is running a high-profile campaign against Amendment 1. It says the goal is to educate voters. Its Race to the Ballot initiative included a cross-state run and tour by members of the Equality North Carolina that included town meetings and rallies.
We are better organized, we're better funded, and I think we have the momentum on our side. So I think what you're seeing publicly is indicative of the fact that there is strong opposition to this amendment across the state, and we have a real chance to defeat it at the ballot.
We are in full support of the marriage amendment.
While it's had a few public events, the Vote for Marriage NC campaign supporting the amendment has been much quieter.
We are holding meetings, we are holding conferences, we are holding rallies across the state. We will be phone calling, we will be walking precincts.
Take one of these, get them for your parents.
Fitzgerald says most of the coalition's activities are unpublicized.
The media is biased, and so we're using our own methods to get the word out, and we're not counting on the media to help us.
Join me.
Join me.
Join me in supporting marriage the way God intended it to be.
But groups on both sides of the issue, some from out of state, are depending on the media to sway public opinion through both TV ads and news media coverage.
So it's going to be hot, it's going to be divisive, and it's going to be loud.
You can see the very obvious opportunities for name calling.
Jody Glusko, director of content for WRAL.com, says the typical story on the website might get 150 comments. Stories on the amendment are getting far more.
Double, triple, 7 times. We consider a story to be high comment traffic if it goes over about 300 comments. And we've seen stories about the marriage issue go over 700 and 800 comments. People feel passionately on both sides. I think that's why this is such a divisive issue, because you can very clearly see how both sides think they're 100% right.
3:58, time for traffic on the 8th.
Talk radio hosts are hearing the same thing.
Traditional marriage has been the foundation of our society for millennia.
It's certainly, I would say, top 5 topic, and it's something you could revisit almost on a weekly basis and not tire it out.
Hot topic. It's a hot button, absolutely. The phones light up. All the buttons go beep, 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 beep. The folks who are against it are mostly against it on religious views. The callers who are for it believe that it's a civil rights issue. I think everybody has their mind made up. The side that wins is the side that will get their people to the polls on May 8th.
God himself instituted marriage. It is sacred. I think to try to redefine it is a mistake.
Everyone should be equal.
Homosexuals are a very tiny fraction of our society. They're loud, but they're few in number.
Gay couples I know are strong families, loving couples, been together for years and years.